want to thank everybody who's been with me, my Xbox clan.
When Kobe's going back to play Madison Square Garden, and he's like, hey, hook me up with dinner with Heath Ledger.
Like Russell Westbrook, that was a great feat the other day. I couldn't even tweet it out.
It's Coach Frank Vogel here, full of enthusiasm and positive energy.
Ask me what I like to play with Kevin Durant. Ask me about Kyrie Irving, Giannis. Ask me about Embiid, Ben Simmons. Go ahead, all of them.
There was a time when the Israelites were wandering in the desert and all of a sudden bread came down from heaven. That's kind of what today feels like to have KCP join.
Welcome back to Bulls vs. Blazers, another free episode of the podcast. You can find us, as always, on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, anywhere else that you can find podcasts. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review, all of that. Check out our Patreon. We're going to have a Patreon episode coming out tomorrow, belatedly from last week, where we're going to read more of Skip Bayless's wife's book, Balls. And then we'll have another one coming out later this week as our normal schedule. So go to patreon.com/BullsVBlazers. It's $3 a month to sign up. You get an extra episode every week. It's worth it. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at BullsVBlazers. I am Sean Highkin. With me, as always, Erik Gundersen.
Yo, double the content on Patreon this week.
Double.
Because we didn't do the Patreon last week, but we're gonna make it up for you because we love our Patreon fam, and you should also join the Patreon fam. And we'll shout you out all the time, just like we shout out everybody's families.
Yeah, and we've had a couple of new subscribers that we picked up in the last week, which is good. And then we wanted to. You're gonna kind of have to bear with us. With the schedule kind of being fluctuating, like there were a couple of different times we were gonna do the Patreon episode over the weekend, but we just kind of had other stuff to do, and so we just decided we'll do 2 this week to make it up to you guys. Like, you're just gonna have to go with us. Like, literally the entire state of Oregon is on fire right now, so the fact that we're even doing anything at all is like impressive. You actually went outside today to do some errands. How was that? I haven't gone outside in like 3 days.
It was awful. It's just terrible. It wasn't as bad. Yesterday, I park my car in the neighborhood, and my wife's car is parked in the garage here. So yesterday, I went over to go watch football, socially distanced, with a couple of friends of mine. And in the walk to the car, which is like maybe 2 blocks, I felt so shitty. And like
and that's with a mask on too.
That's with I have a KN95 mask on, like the shit that's supposed to be all about keeping the smoke out. And I was messed up like all day. Like, I came back, I felt a little bit better as soon as I got home. And then like later on at night, I was just like, I was hurting. And like we normally have a humidifier in the winter, but we have our humidifier going in here to try and bring some moisture into the air, because the smoke just dries you out. Like, you can chug as much water as you want, but you're just never going to feel hydrated with this stuff. It's like, it's only 60 degrees right now, but I'm like warm as hell, because it's just, the smoke is just doing it to us, and it's terrible. I mean, shout out to all the firefighters, first responders. We have firefighters from Canada, from Mexico. We have prison firefighters, which should be illegal.
They should be getting paid.
They should be getting paid real wages, by the way. And one of my friends from Salem used to be a wildlife firefighter, and he's been bringing to attention like the lack of healthcare that they have and all this stuff. So shout out to the firefighters, man. Like, you guys are heroes. Shout out to everyone who's organizing donation centers. I know some people in Salem that are working really hard in the United Way.
We should donate our Patreon money this month to that.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll donate the Bulls versus Blazers Patreon dough to helping out first responders. I mean, $500,000
just popped into my head. I just made the executive decision that we're going to do that.
I'm fine with that. I'm more than okay with that. Shout out to the people that have lost so much, and there's 500,000 people that had to be evacuated in Oregon. Yeah. So, this is really bad. As if being in a pandemic could not get any worse. I mean, you had a tweet about it today. It's like, at least before in the pandemic, we could go outside and at least take our mind off of the fact that we can't really do anything that we normally like to do. And then now we literally can't do anything. So, it's pretty rough. So thank you for being patient with us, folks, with this unprecedented wildfire situation that we have in Oregon right now.
Yeah, and the other thing I will say about this is I'm glad that if this was going to happen, that it happened now while the playoffs are going on, so that at least we have something to do to distract ourselves. Like I've had so much work to do lately. Like I've written a lot of stuff at Bleacher Report, but it's a little bit of a plug, but I've written some stuff. We've had games to watch pretty much every day.
Mm-hmm.
We've had stuff. If this had happened in like April or May, when we were still like in the worst part of COVID and we didn't know when the NBA was going to come back and there was just like nothing to do, I don't know if we would have survived. But right now, like, at least we can say, okay, like, I've got the playoffs. We'll have games. Like, we're recording. The reason we're recording 2 episodes today is because today is, like, the day off where there's not going to be any games today. So we have a little bit of time to just kind of reset. But mostly there's been games every day. There's going to be 2 tomorrow. And then after that, the conference finals start and then the finals. So we're going to have a lot of stuff to do going forward. And so hopefully by the time the season ends and we have a lot more free time, the fires have kind of cleared out a little bit and we can at least go back to being able to go outside and like go for walks when we want to.
Yeah, it's supposed to rain tomorrow, so and hopefully it continues to rain. That would be really nice.
Yeah,
to get those fires more under control and more contained, and also start the process of clearing out all the smoke, which from all the forecasts I've seen, it probably won't be out until the end of the week if we're lucky. So yeah. But hey, basketball is going on. The Eastern Conference Finals start tomorrow. I think it's vibe check time though. We got to go straight to Game 7. I think. Nuggets Clippers. Clippers vibes way down. Obviously, and the Nuggets. I mean, this is what we said on the last podcast, where it's just like they do not care ever about any circumstance. Like they just play basketball, and the Clippers are favored again in Game 7, but I would not be at all surprised if they lost because Denver's been here a zillion times now. This is their 4th straight Game 7.
This era of the Nuggets, this like I'm talking about like the Michael Malone, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, like that, the current regime, like the current iteration of the Nuggets, like post, George Karl, Danilo Gallinari, like that whole team. Has never played a playoff series that did not go to Game 7. They went 7 against the Spurs in the first round last year. Obviously, the Blazers series went 7 last year, and then they came back down 3-1 against Utah in the first round this year, and now they are back down from down 3-1 again this time. And it's just, I mean, it's really impressive, first of all. But I also, like, I don't know, like this... I don't know if this is more about them or is about us maybe having been right to be out on the Clippers like we have been, but I will also just say at Bleacher Report we did like a staff roundtable of just like predictions for Game 7. There were like 5 or 6 of us who participated in it. I was the only one who was brave enough to pick Denver because at this point, after watching the game yesterday, I was just like, I have no confidence that the Clippers are going to win. Like even if they're up big, they were up big. They were up 19 in the second half yesterday, and they blew a huge lead and lost by like 10. Or 8 or whatever they ended up losing.
Yeah, the second half score was insane. It was like 62-35 or something. Like it was they just absolutely blew them away. Like from the middle of the third quarter on, I was watching that game. I had it on the laptop because I was watching football with other people, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like they're gonna do it. And then they went up by 16 in the fourth quarter. I was just like blown away at that point. Like they couldn't miss anything. You had Monty Morris getting the and ones. I mean, Jokic is no big man. Offensively impacts the game more than he does, and the Clippers don't have an answer for him. I mean, and Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell have been awful these last couple of games because they're just getting taken advantage of defensively. And it's like, as great as Paul George and Kawhi are on defense, they are only 40% of the starting lineup. Like they can't do everything, and so. They're just going 2-man game with Jokic and Murray. Michael Porter played some good minutes after coming out and saying some really weird shit about needing the ball more and moving the ball around more, which everyone blasted him for. But he came back and he did the good things and he finished the game. And props to him, props to the Nuggets to deal with that. I mean, and I think it just goes back to Jokic.
I thought the whole fallout to that situation was pretty interesting because I mean, Damian Lillard, a few other guys kind of talked about it and basically said, look, you can, even if as a rookie, you can say like, I want the ball more, but you have to do that in-house. You can't just like tell that to the media. You have to be a little bit more diplomatic. And it was the pressure was kind of on MPJ to play the way he did in games 5 and 6 after saying that, because if he comes out and says, oh, you need to give me the ball more as a rookie who has never done anything in his career before. And then he goes out and is terrible in the next game. He's going to get clowned, but he actually responded after he said that. And he said, and it kind of looked like, okay, maybe he was right that they need to give him the ball more. The thing with the Clippers and like their role players, like you said, obviously Paul George and Kawhi have been great, and especially shout out to Paul George because he got some playoff P jokes during the Dallas series because he wasn't very good in a lot of those games, and so it was kind of that was kind of the narrative around him. He's been really good in the Denver series. Him and Kawhi have both been great for the most part.
He had 33. He had 33 yesterday. It was definitely not his fault.
Right. No, it wasn't. But the whole thing, the reason that people have picked the Clippers all year is as opposed to the Lakers, where you can say, okay, the Lakers have LeBron and Anthony Davis, but the rest of their supporting cast is kind of weak. Whereas the whole thing with the Clippers has been they have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, who are 2 top 10 guys in the league. And then they've also got all these great role players who play hard, like Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, go down the line, all these guys. Those guys have all been bad. And now it's just, and the Lakers role players have been good.
Yeah.
Whether it's Rondo, Kuzma,
Caruso.
Caruso. Like, the Lakers role players have been better than the Clippers role players. Not only am I thinking that the Clippers might lose tomorrow to Denver, but I'm also now feeling like we've been looking forward to this Clippers-Lakers Western Conference Finals for literally over a full calendar year ever since they did their free agency moves. Everybody's been like looking forward to like the eventual playoff series. And it's like, oh, this is going to be so exciting. This is going to go 7 games. This is going to be a huge, this is going to be awesome. Like, this is going to be a great battle. I now feel like if the Clippers manage to win Game 7 tomorrow, I feel like the Lakers are going to beat them in 5.
Yeah, I have seen nothing from the Clippers that makes me think they're going to match up better against the Lakers than they do against the Nuggets. Like, there's nothing that makes me believe that. And they get to be back more to themselves. Like, they'll be playing big men more. AD can play more at the 4 in this series, and it doesn't really hurt them the way it did against the Rockets. And it also, there's just everyone kind of gets their roles, and there's a leadership thing, and everyone's talking about it now. Kawhi has never been in this position as not only the best player on the team, but also the leader of the team. Because in San Antonio, he had Timmy and Manu and Tony Parker and Pop. And in Toronto, he had Kyle Lowry and Marc Gasol and all these guys that are veterans that can kind of be more of a vocal leader. And now he's in the position where he's got to be the leader of this team. And it's something that he's never done before, that we've never seen. And it's like LeBron is very comfortable in that position. And I do feel like, I feel like the Lakers definitely have the upper hand. They're a better defensive team. They have the 2 best players in the series. Or at least the best player in the series in LeBron, and then AD and Kawhi are fighting it out for the second best player. I mean, Kawhi probably is better, but AD is just like so many levels above the big men that the Clippers have. I just don't see, even if that's the series, I've got Lakers in 5 or 6. I don't think it's going 7.
LeBron has just been completely locked in so far in the playoffs. We've seen both rounds, the Portland series and the Houston series. He's kind of done what he does all the time in the playoffs and just kind of mailed in the first game just to kind of feel it out and just kind of get a feel for the matchups and all that stuff. And then since then, he just dominated. That happened in both rounds so far. Like, I don't see anything from LeBron that makes me think he's losing a series, at least in the West. I mean, we'll get to whichever of the Heat or Celtics ends up coming out of the East. Like, I think one of those teams would have a shot against the Lakers, but like, I don't see anything about the way LeBron has played that makes me think he's losing a series, at least before the finals.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm willing to start a dialogue about the finals, but even then, like, the way he's playing and the way that they're so locked in, it's like, I like the Celtics to win it, but I mean, I can't. If the series is Lakers Clippers, I don't know if I can really bring myself to pick against LeBron in that situation.
And I mean, I think for the Clippers, I have one dialogue I want to start, which is that Joakim Noah should start at center. I think Doc needs to get desperate.
They need energy, bro. They need something that's like energy and some nasty and some defense. Like,
you can't play Montrezl Harrell in this series, and like Zubac has been good, but like he's one of these kinds of guys where like if you get above like 28 or 30 minutes for him, it's kind of diminishing returns. So you need another big body. Harrell has been pretty unplayable. I think they should throw Joakim Noah out there. That's a guy who has a lot of playoff experience. I don't know how much he has left physically. He looked pretty good in exhibition games that they played at the start of the bubble, and he hasn't really played much since then, so I don't really know what he has left. But at this point, Doc should kind of try throwing that out there.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of, in a different way, a couple of years ago when, I mean, it's different team, different situation and everything, but when the Cavs had Game 7 against the Indiana Pacers a couple of years ago, like, Ty Lue was like, I'm going with Tristan Thompson. Like, I'm going down with a guy that I know and trust. And it's like, and they won that game. Tristan had a great game. And obviously Tristan and Noah are very different players, but I think it's about, like, let's get some pedigree in there. Like Montrezl Harrell and Montrezl Harrell's been, he's the sixth man of the year. He's been good, but like, let's get somebody that's been in these big games and has won them. You know what I mean? And I would want to throw Noah out there.
This is a point that I saw somebody on Twitter make yesterday. I think it might have been Mo Dakhil, or it was one of those like video breakdown type of accounts.
Coach adjacent people.
Right. Like Mo or like Steve Jones. It was somebody like that. I forget who exactly it was, but they said that, you know, Dwight Howard has been awesome for the Lakers this year in his backup center role, but Frank Vogel was smart enough to realize that this Houston matchup was a bad matchup for him. And so he was willing to make the adjustment and basically not play him at all because that was what the matchup demanded. And he went to Anthony Davis at center, and like JaVale was playing a lot less minutes, and Markieff Morris was playing more power forward. And he was able to kind of make those adjustments and say, look, Dwight, this wasn't personal. This is just the best matchup for this series. Doc needs to be able to do that and be like, look, Montrezl Harrell, I know you're the sixth man of the year. I know you've been great for us all year. This is a bad matchup. We need to, you know, go a different direction, at least for this next Game 7. And then once you get back to the Lakers series.
He was behind the 8 ball too. Like,
yeah.
It's not his fault that his grandma died and he couldn't work out for like 40 days. Like, that's not his fault. He was behind the 8 ball. And it's like, if you can't play and literally everybody else is getting better and working on their game and getting in better shape, like it sucks. And it's just because Doc even said it, like, they don't have practices now. The way he's trying to get Montrez into shape is by playing him. But this is you can't play somebody into shape in a Game 7. Exactly. You can't do that. And I would just love to throw out, they just need a little more grit. Like, not this Pat Beverly bullshit, but like real grit. And I think Noah, why not? I mean, Harrell, like you said, has been completely unplayable. And maybe you get Noah in there, you start a fight or something, and you just get the team going. Like, you just give them some juice. Doc doesn't have a lot of cards to play left. And I think he's got to make an adjustment. And this is crazy. The Nuggets, little history lesson, if they win, they will be the first team to ever come back from 2 3-1 deficits in the same postseason. No one has ever done that before. So the odds are against them, but like, I would not doubt it at all. The funniest possible way for the bubble to end is for the Nuggets to win the championship after being down 3-1 in all 4 series. They are down 3-1. They're down 3-1 against the Lakers in the Western Finals and come back and win. And then they get down against the Heat or the Celtics in the Finals 3-1 and then come back and win. That would just be the funniest thing probably in NBA history. Yeah, it would definitely be the weirdest. I mean, it would be perfect for 2020, right? Yeah. Like, the first time anybody's ever come back from 3-1 deficits multiple times and they win the championship. And it's a team like the Denver Nuggets that nobody was picking to win the title. No. And Jokic like came into the season overweight and everyone was talking about him not giving a shit and he didn't really look too good in FIBA, but who cares? Like, he is a baller, and just like, I have so much respect for Jokic. Like, he just doesn't care. And I love what he said after the game. He's like, we have no pressure. Like, the Clippers are the favorites to win the championship. I know we're picking the Lakers now, but the betting odds have had the Clippers ahead of the Lakers for most of the postseason. And if they lose, this is a massive upset. Like, there's no way around that. So just like, not a single person. I mean, I didn't even think I thought it was going to be 6. And I felt like I was maybe the most generous of the people that was picking this series, but except for Denver fans, basically. And I'm impressed. I'm excited for Game 7. It's going to be good. And I'm excited to see how they respond to the pressure. The Clippers do, how Kawhi responds to being in this spot. And yeah, this is going to be great. Did you enjoy Paul George saying that
the Clippers are still in the driver's seat.
Oh God.
Which, no, you literally are not in the driver's seat. Now it's literally a 1-game series and it's a toss-up. So, like, you guys are not in the driver's seat.
No, there's only one driver's seat, and you're not in it anymore because they just took control of it. So
the fact that there is a 7th game means Denver's in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I'm with it. I mean, people, a lot of analytics people don't believe in momentum, but Denver has it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Clippers are shook, so we should probably move on to. We'll talk a little bit more about the Lakers later at some point once we know who's winning they're chilling. They're chilling right playing. Now. I just want to say, we continue to be vindicated with the playoff Rondo thing. He's continued to be playoff Rondo through the rest of the Rockets series. So, shout out to everyone who doubted that.
Yeah. Shout out to y'all for not realizing that Rondo does this in the postseason, and he's going to continue to do it.
Nobody's ever going to doubt him again because now that it happened to the Lakers, it actually counts.
Yeah, exactly. Like when it happened with the Bulls and the Pelicans, nobody gave a shit. But now that it's happening with the Lakers,
suddenly I'm seeing a lot of national writers suddenly discovering playoff Rondo for the first time because it's happening with the Lakers.
Did you see the pregame show topic that they had before Game 5? Is like, does Rondo make the Lakers have a big three with AD and LeBron? I mean, dialogue?
The dialogue has been started. We've been starting that dialogue all year.
We have been. We've been starting this dialogue since before the playoffs started. And we were worried. This was one of the reasons why we were a little worried about the Blazers series was because they didn't have Rondo. Turned out it didn't matter. But in this series, they absolutely needed him because the Rockets just had so many guards and just play such a unique style. And he delivered. I mean, he kicked Westbrook's ass in this series.
We need to do a thorough shout out to the Rockets families now.
Yes, we do.
That's kind of where we're headed. First of all, shout out to Danuel House's family, which is apparently going through some things right now because of his decision to let the COVID testing lady into his hotel room for, according to the press release, multiple hours.
Which is what?
That's like an incredible job of throwing him under the bus by the NBA there.
Yeah, and he tried to deny it, and then the Houston Chronicle, Jonathan Fagan, reported that as the investigation went on, he finally said, "You got me." He finally admitted to wrongdoing. So shout out to, and they tried to implicate Tyson Chandler, because I think the Rockets tried to be like, no, it was Tyson Chandler, not Danuel House, because Tyson Chandler never plays.
They were trying to have him be the fall guy because they figure he's probably going to retire anyway.
Yeah, they were trying to have him be the fall guy. They held him out in Game 3, and then the NBA was like, okay, we know Tyson Chandler had nothing to do with this, and then it was Danuel House, and House, he was important. Obviously, he's not the star player, but he's an important part of their team. Like he's a better defender than a lot of the guys that they would bring off the bench. He's good off the dribble, pretty solid, and obviously he's also a good shooter. But it's yeah, I mean, that was a bummer because I did like this matchup, and that kind of took the wind out of the Rockets' sails. It felt like they just kind of gave up as the investigation started and he wasn't able to play. But that's their problem. And now Mike D'Antoni's gone. They might trade. They might trade James Harden at this point.
I started the dialogue in a column on Bleacher Report yesterday about, and it seems like all indications are right now, just based on the different reporting. Like Tim McMahon had a big, what's next for the Rockets piece that went up on ESPN right after the series ended. And they were talking about it on Hoop Collective yesterday with like Kevin Pelton and Windhorst. And so far it seems like the idea is that they're just going to run this back. And I'm sure that's what Daryl Morey wants to do. But the question to answer here is it going to be Daryl Morey that's making these decisions? Because, I mean, right now, apparently Tillman is saying he wants to keep Morey and that Morey's not going to get fired. I think, and I wrote this in the column, Tillman has lost so much money in the pandemic because all of his businesses are restaurants and casinos. And Daryl Morey is one of the highest paid front office executives in the league because he's been there forever. And he's one of the most respected guys. Like other teams have tried to hire him. So he gets, I don't know exactly what he makes, but he's one of the highest paid executives among any team in the league. Yeah. So if Tillman's trying to cut costs, I could see him saying, maybe we should go a cheaper option for a front office. And then the other part of it is that Tillman is on record, and I just looked this up again to write the columns because I mentioned it, but back in May, Tillman was at some restaurant like owners association meeting with President Trump, and he was like joking to Trump about how Daryl Morey cost me a lot of money with his free Hong Kong tweet, and I should have fired him then. Like, it's a whole like, that I don't think Tillman is. I don't think Daryl's still there because Tillman still wants him there. I think he's still there because Tillman wanted to fire him after the China thing, and Adam Silver was like, no, we can't make it look like China pressured us into firing Daryl Morey. You can't fire him. Now he can at least say, okay, we had another disappointing playoff exit. Let's go a different direction. At least now you have kind of a plausible deniability for firing him because of China.
Right. It's been far enough. I mean, it's been almost a year at this point because the China stuff was in early October of last year. So, I think it's going to be, they definitely have cover now to do that. And also, with regards to Harden and Westbrook, like Tillman in that same meeting with President Trump was like I think Trump's like, you got to pay someone $40 million, and Tillman's like, I got two that I pay $40 million to a year. So I mean, he clearly is counting the pennies there, and I mean, it's dicey. It's a very, I mean, maybe they run it back. I saw the Ty Lue rumor that Chris Haynes put out there that maybe they'll bring in Ty Lue.
Ty Lue's not going to be cheap.
No, he's going to want 5 years.
Ty Lue is the highest paid assistant coach in the league as it stands, or like one of the couple of highest paid assistant coaches in the league, whichever job he gets, whether it's Philly or New Orleans is the team I've heard him linked to, like all these other teams. It's going to be a bidding war for him, and I don't know if Tillman had the money to even be able to afford him. A rumor, I think it was McMahon that had this yesterday, but Sam Cassell is a guy that apparently has interest, and I know that just a couple days ago, Doc Rivers was saying that like it's a joke that Sam Cassell has never gotten a head coaching job, and he is a former Rockets player, and he's a guy who has
won two championships with them.
Yeah, he's a guy who's put in his time as an assistant, and he's a guy that a lot of players respect and has a good reputation. So, and if you're hiring a first timer as from the assistant pool, it's going to be cheaper than hiring somebody like Ty Lue or
with a championship resume,
Brett Brown or whoever, one of these kind of higher names that they could bring in. So I could see Tillman doing that. And then now, as far as trading Westbrook and Harden, it's going to be hard to trade Russ because just he's making so much money and he just wasn't very good. And he might just be, I don't want to say done, but
I think he was hurt. He was playing hurt too. Yeah. He couldn't work out. It's kind of a little bit similar to the Montrez situation, but obviously different circumstances, but he couldn't work out for like 30 days because of COVID. Then he gets hurt with the quad. He tries to come back to play with the quad, and he said it wasn't 100%, which like obviously he's not. No, a lot of people aren't 100% right now in the postseason, but like that hurt, and maybe he comes back better. But I mean, some of the decisions that he was making were just bad, and the Lakers just feasted on those mistakes. Basically, after game one, they were able to take advantage, and Rondo was a big reason why. LeBron, Kuz, Caruso, like all these guys getting in the passing lanes, and Westbrook just making terrible decisions. Like it wasn't even about the shots. As much for me as like he was bad at shooting, obviously, but the decision making, which he should be better at. He's a point guard. It was just not there at all, and he just self-destructed in that series. And yeah, I think it's gonna be really hard to trade him. And I guess if I'm, let's say, Milwaukee, I would be beating down the door to try and get James Harden.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing.
They hate each other. They hate each other, but they should be on the same. That would be a cool team, Giannis and Harden.
They would like each other if they were on the same team. That's the thing. They hate each other because they're like their teams are playing each other and they've had altercations in a game. There have been other guys who didn't like each other and then they're on the same team and it's fine. Like Jimmy Butler and various guys that he's been on different teams with. Like that's been that's not an issue to me. My thing with the Rockets is if you're keeping Harden, what are you doing? Because you can't just run this team back because even if Russ had been healthy, this team is not good enough to win a championship. Mm-hmm. Like they won the first game, and in retrospect, it's the same reason the Blazers won the first game in the first round series because LeBron just was taking the first game of the series to just feel it out and wasn't really going 100%.
He was downloading the scouting report.
Right. So what if you keep Harden, you can't just run this team back because they have no cap space because they're paying Harden, Russ, and Eric Gordon. Just those three guys combined are making $99 million. And that's before you even get to like PJ Tucker and Robert Covington and these other guys. They have no money to add people. They have no like draft picks because they've traded all their draft picks to Oklahoma City in the Russ trade. They have no like young prospects. Like they don't have like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or like a up and coming, like highly regarded young prospect who people think is going to get better in the next couple of years and become like a new piece for them. They don't really like the closest they have to that is like Danuel House, who just got kicked out of the bubble, and Ben McLemore, who's like a reclamation project and is like almost 30 at this point. Like they just don't have anywhere to turn. They don't have any more stuff to trade.
Yeah, they have no more outs.
Right. And, even, I guess Robert Covington's on like a pretty good contract. They could get something for him, but they also need him if they're going to continue with this team. PJ Tucker, who's their third best player, is 35 now. Like this is kind of the dead end. And so to me, their two choices are to either run it back, and it's probably going to just be disappointing again with this exact same team, especially like you get a new coach and people are going to have to get used to the new coach, or you just tear the whole thing down and say, okay, we had a good run. They probably would have won the championship in 2018 if Chris Paul hadn't gotten hurt in the Western Finals against Golden State. If they had even made like 3 of those 27 3-pointers they missed, they probably would have won that game, and then I think they would have beaten the Cavs. Like they came close to winning a championship, and props to Daryl Morey for every single turn since he did the Harden trade. He's been willing to take big swings. He went and got Dwight Howard, and then after the a few years, the league started to kind of pass like the Dwight Howard era by of like big centers. So he let him walk, and then he went and got Chris Paul, and that worked for a couple of years. And then him and Harden started to have tension, and then he went out and got Russ. He's always been willing to take swings and reinvent himself, and he hasn't been totally set on building one different kind of roster and one way of doing things. But this might just be the end of the line for what this experiment is. And if you want to rebuild, Harden is still, like, as much as like Harden has disappeared in the playoffs the last couple of years, and we can maybe get to that if we want to, but like Harden has disappeared in the playoffs, but he's still led the league in scoring for the last 3 years. He's still an MVP caliber player. If they make him available, you're going to have people lining up to try to get him, and you're going to be able to get actually good offers for him and something that you can rebuild with, especially if Daryl Morey stays, if Tillman doesn't fire Morey. If you give Morey a bunch of young players and draft picks to work with, I have pretty good faith that he'll be able to figure something out and get them back competing pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been good at that. I mean, before he got Harden, he was able to, get enough guys on the team that the Thunder would have wanted, or guys that the Clippers wanted to get Chris Paul. Like he's done a good job with that. He does good value signings. And I think this Westbrook thing was just out of the ordinary because I think that Harden wanted it, and that was kind of the deal. And now it's like, yeah, I mean, Harden is in a weird spot. The Rockets are in a weird spot. It feels also with the HouAnon rage that we've seen on Twitter from.
Oh man, shout out to HouAnon.
Yeah, but they listen, and shout out to Damon Rangula, who coined the HouAnon term. We like to give credit where credit is due on this podcast, unlike some other people. And anyway, but the reason that they're freaking out so much, in my opinion, is because they know that this era is slipping away, and like it's kind of over now. I think that's a lot of the frustration that we're hearing is like those fans realizing like this is probably it for this group.
What was your favorite of the HouAnon podcast clips that came out?
I mean, the Caruso one was great. I think my favorite one, though, was the one where the guy said that he wouldn't touch Giannis with a 10-foot pole because he believes in Westbrook more than Giannis.
Did you see the follow-up to that?
No. Please tell me.
The follow-up was he was accusing Giannis of faking his ankle injury.
Oh, right. The ankle injury that we all saw happen right in front of our faces. Like, come on.
I want to tell you what the name of that podcast is. It's on the Dream Shake, which is the SB Nation Rockets blog. But the name of the podcast is Harden My Take.
Oh, my God. Of course. Of course. Barstool fanboys.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's and I mean we've seen, and I mean the HouAnon thing. I mean that was part like these kind of unhinged podcasts were part of it. But during this whole series, like the whole Danuel House thing, they were saying that was a conspiracy by the league to get the Lakers, to keep the Rockets from winning the series, A, because they wanted LeBron in the conference finals, and B, because the Rockets games aren't broadcast in China still because of Daryl Morey's tweet. And so they were trying to get back their China money by making the Rockets lose. That's even going back to Game 7 of the Oklahoma City series. They thought that like some of those calls were rigged against them because they didn't want, because the league didn't want the Rockets to be playing against LeBron in what was going to be a highly rated series, because then those games wouldn't be broadcast in China, which, I mean, there's just so many levels to this. First of all, yes, the NBA was like, well, we're really worried that the Rockets are going to win. We better make sure Danuel House can't play in the series.
Yeah, and also my favorite thing too was that like LeBron and Rich Paul set it all in motion, which like LeBron is not even in the Rockets were the only team in their hotel. Like LeBron was never around the Rockets to even, unless you want to get really, really third eye with it, Klutch Sports, Ben McLemore. Huh?
You think McLemore was a Manchurian candidate?
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Like, but if we're gonna follow the QAnon logic, like, why stop at LeBron? Let's think about the Ben McLemore role in this whole situation.
My favorite part of the outrage about the Danuel House thing was the HouAnon people being like, the NBA was willing to just ruin this guy's marriage in order to, by spreading this false stuff about him. They're trying to break out. I actually saw this tweet from like some Rockets blogger. They're trying to be willing to break up a strong black family in order to make sure by spreading false information in order to make sure the Lakers win the series. And then like the next day, Danuel House's either wife or girlfriend or whatever had an Instagram story post that just said, you reap what you sow, with like a snake emoji on it. And then it was like, oh, well, I guess he actually did it. I don't know if you saw that, but that was
I did not see that.
Yes, dude. This is so good. This is like, we're already like the Rockets are already a team that we have like conspiracy theories about, going back to a couple of years ago when they had that fight with the Clippers in the tunnel at the Staples Center. And that was like a whole thing.
Well, and then like the book report that they sent to the NBA,
yes,
about all the calls, and like if all these calls went the way that the Rockets wanted them to, they would have won the series by 50 points or some shit like that. It's like,
and then they leaked it during their next round series, like this was about the 2018 Western Finals against the Warriors. They leaked this during their second round series last year against the Warriors, which, by the way, they couldn't close out that series despite Kevin Durant getting hurt during that series and not playing for most of it.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, shout out to the Rockets. If you keep
shout out to HouAnon.
Yeah, shout out to HouAnon. Stay strong. Keep
your third eye open.
Keep bringing us that quality conspiracy theory. The Rockets are done. They were interesting. I did have some fun watching them, but obviously they just couldn't handle the Lakers, and I guess Danuel House couldn't handle the bubble. So
shout out to Mike D'Antoni also. Like, he's going to get another job. Woj had him linked to Philly yesterday, which is pretty interesting. I'd love to see him with like Simmons and Embiid. I think that'd be interesting.
He was an assistant under Brett Brown for a minute too. So he has some history there. And then also the Pacers are very, very interested in him as well.
I don't know why I would go to the Pacers if I was him. That's not a very good job.
No, I mean, if I have the choice and I'm Mike D'Antoni, I'm going to Philly. Like that's what I would do. Yeah, that's about where I stand with that. Should we talk about Giannis's meeting with Bucks ownership?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of the biggest story in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, he apparently, according to Woj, had a 3-hour lunch with Mark Lasry, and Lasry committed to going into luxury tax, which maybe that would have been useful strategy last summer when Malcolm Brogdon was restricted free agent and they just let him walk. Maybe, because now it's like, I don't know what they do. Like, you could give up a bunch of picks and Eric Bledsoe for Chris Paul, or maybe you try to hit a home run and get James Harden or something. But I don't know. There's no clear moves here for the Bucks either. To improve their team, because I don't know what they do. I mean, I think the Brogdon thing really screwed them over. I
have gone back and forth about the Brogdon thing because I've always been very annoyed with every time the Bucks lose a game in the playoffs, it's, oh, well, they should have re-signed Malcolm Brogdon. And, like, Malcolm Brogdon's good. Like, he's fine. But people talk about him like it was, like, Oklahoma City trading James Harden. And he's good, but it's not, like... But at the same time, yeah, Malcolm Brogdon would have helped. And it's also the principle of the matter of, like, maybe you don't do the Eric Bledsoe extension and you keep Brogdon and let Bledsoe go, and then you'll be in a better spot. Like, or maybe you just keep both and go into the luxury tax. And, like, or maybe, they should have used their... Like, I think letting Brogdon go was a mistake, but I think there's other things they did last offseason. It wasn't just, if they had just kept Brogdon, then their offseason would be perfect, because, like, there was no reason for them to re-sign to sign Robin Lopez. Like, that was, like, Brooke was great for them, but Robin just was kind of an awkward fit, and he didn't even play at all in this.
Yeah, he wasn't even active. They
signed Wes Matthews and Kyle Korver, who are both good, but they're both like 38 or whatever. So, like, you want to sign some younger wings. If part of your justification for letting Brogdon go is, well, we can just sign veterans on minimum contracts in order to just kind of make up most of what he does, it's okay, maybe sign some guys who aren't in their mid-30s then. Like, that's kind of how I would...
Tyler Hero was running circles around those dudes.
Yeah. One guy I've heard as a trade target, this was on the Hoop Collective podcast yesterday, that I thought was interesting. I don't know how they'd get him, but if you're doing a trade with Oklahoma City, maybe you don't go after Chris Paul and have to give up all those salaries and make all that match and have to give up all the picks that you'd have to give up or whatever. Maybe you try to go get Dennis Schroeder, who has played for Bud before in Atlanta and is just, I mean, he was like a 6 man of the year contender this year, and he's become, I know he was a guy that was pretty polarizing in Atlanta, but he's become really good in Oklahoma City the last couple of years, and I think he would be an upgrade over either Hill or Bledsoe for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people rightfully had him as their 6 man of the year, and he's not a liability on defense. He's actually a quite good defender. I mean, in the Blazers series, they were like, all right, you're going to cover him full court. You're going to cover Dame full court, and obviously it didn't stop them, but, like, he's good. He's tenacious. He's a really good driver, and yeah, I mean, I think that would be a nice pick too. And he's younger, not as old as Chris Paul. And even though he's not as good as Chris at controlling the game, I mean, he would definitely be a nice fit there, especially with the history that he has with Budenholzer, which Budenholzer's coming back apparently.
Giannis must have wanted him, because, like, that's the thing. And I didn't think, I thought Bud didn't do a good job in the Toronto series, and I had kind of been on the train of maybe getting rid of him and elevating Darvin Ham or going and getting Ty Lue or somebody like that is the move. Giannis must have signaled to the front office that he wants Bud back. Mm-hmm. Because if they had gotten the idea that Giannis wanted him gone, I think they had to fire him. But Giannis must have said, look, I still believe in Bud. I still, he's still my coach. I don't want to get him fired. That must be why he's staying. So we'll just see what they end up doing. I think you have to just get better personnel. You have to, again, not have Wesley Matthews and Kyle Korver at their ages be such important parts of the rotation. You have to upgrade the Eric Bledsoe spot at point guard. You have to do other. I mean, I would hope that the front office will also lean on Bud and say, look, I know this is just the way you like to do things. I know you have your rotations the way they are. You got to be able to adjust in the playoffs. You got to play Giannis more than 32 minutes or whatever they were playing him in the series. You got to be willing to put him and Middleton back in the fourth quarter earlier in this series against Toronto, where your season is on the line, or not Toronto, Miami. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
I said Toronto. I said Toronto both times. And I was kind of like conflating that series with the
conference finals last year.
Like, our entire state is on fire. If we make a couple of like mental errors like that, just like bear with us.
Yeah, it's like that right now. But yeah,
anything we say that's inaccurate on the show, you can blame on the smoke.
Yeah, we're blaming it on the smoke, and it's not fun smoke. It's really shitty smoke. It makes you feel like crap all the time. Yeah. I think the Bucks are in an interesting situation. I mean, they're clearly, I think they have the most fascinating offseason of any team right now. And I'm excited to see what they do with their team. And Giannis, and in Budenholzer's defense, I will say we were killing him for not playing Giannis more minutes, but they were getting killed when Giannis was on the floor too. So, like, Giannis also has to own some of that, like, develop a floater, get a hook shot, build out his game a little bit more than just the rim and the set shot from three. Like, he's got to mix in some other stuff. Because in the playoffs, it's like you're not going to be able to get to the rim as easily as you normally do. I mean, so that's just something he's going to have to deal with and get better at. But he's young. I mean, he's 25. Like, he's got plenty of time to get better. But
this is the same stuff people were saying about LeBron when he was that age.
Exactly. He had to get better. He had to develop a post game. He had to develop his mid range, like all the same stuff. And Giannis, he can. It's just he's got to do it. And maybe one more year with Bud, maybe they adjust a little bit of their strategy, and go from there. Because I mean, it seems like they're still going to keep Brook Lopez, but I don't know what they do other than like, they got to upgrade point guard. They got to do all that stuff. I mean, do we want to talk about the East Finals now?
Maybe. Going back to the Harden thing, though.
Okay.
I have a dialogue I want to start about which team he should go to.
Okay.
I think the obvious thing for him and the obvious team to trade for him is the Knicks.
RJ. They trade
right. It's like
they got to trade RJ.
RJ and like a couple of picks, and then like I don't know. They have salary filler like Julius Randle or whoever. They had the one thing I will give
Julius Randle and RJ for James Harden. And a pick or something.
That's not an amazing package, but like people still think RJ could be good. Like he had some moments, but I think it's perfect because Tibbs is just Tibbs just likes to let guys ISO. Like he had Jimmy Butler, he had Derrick Rose. Like he is good with an isolation scorer, so he can. Andrew Wiggins is also like an ISO guy, so like he would be willing to just let James Harden do his thing unencumbered. Mm-hmm. And then for Harden, I think this is a good legacy play because Harden is good enough by himself. Like Harden is one of those guys that, especially you take him to the East where the 3 lowest seeds in the East playoffs are actually like not good. Like Harden is good enough that he would get the Knicks to the playoffs by himself if they had even like replacement level players around him.
Yeah.
And so then with Harden, if he goes to the Knicks and gets them to the playoffs, they haven't made the playoffs in 7 years. The narrative around Harden and his career goes from he's on these title contenders and then chokes in the playoffs to he was the guy that got the Knicks back to the playoffs and made the Knicks relevant again. And he would own New York, where right now there's all this buzz that, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, especially with Steve Nash as their head coach, there's a lot of buzz around them right now. If Harden goes to the Knicks and they're good, and the Knicks haven't been good in almost a decade, like they kind of take that buzz back from the Nets. And I know that's something that's very important to that organization is to own New York, quote unquote, as much as that's like a dumb thing to care about. I think for both sides, it would just be a matter of coming up with a trade package. And I guess, if Daryl Morey or if whoever is running the team at that point, whether, Tillman keeps Daryl or fires him, I think that's the situation that makes the most sense from all counts, from all corners.
I agree. I mean, Knicks fans still talk in reverential terms about Carmelo Anthony. Like they want just someone to be good, even not just great, just good and competitive, and
not even just good, but good and also embraces being the face of the Knicks. And that's why guys liked Melo, is because Melo never ran from that, even though the Knicks never went as far in the playoffs as they wanted to when they had him. He was always the guy who was like, this is my team. I'm going to own all the losses. I'm the face of it. And James Harden, one thing we know about James Harden is he likes the spotlight and he likes the lifestyle that comes with being an NBA superstar. So you put him in New York, he's going to embrace it.
Oh, yeah, he's going to enjoy the hell out of it. If I'm Harden, I would love that. I mean, you get to be in MSG. You have all the celebrities that live in New York that pull up courtside at the game. Like, he would eat that up. I would love to see it. And, you get him and you figure it out later. I mean, that's basically what the Rockets have done. And if you have Harden, then other guys are going to want to play with him. Like, even though the Chris Paul thing flamed out, like guys still want to play with other great players. And if you have him, especially in a market like New York, it probably would not be that hard to get some guys to maybe take less than market value to come play for you when you have James Harden and New York, and it's going to be this whole thing. Like, I think it would be awesome. I would love to see Harden on the Knicks.
You hire Tibbs to make the playoffs right now. You don't hire Tibbs if you're going to do a long rebuild. You hire Tibbs if you're going to try to be competitive right away. And if you swing a trade for Harden, like that's how you do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you instantly become a playoff team in at least become a 7 seed in the East with James Harden at the very least, and maybe even better, because he's an elite offense unto himself. You put him on any team, that team's going to be top 5 in offense, no doubt.
And he also gives them, like you said, he gives them credibility with other free agents. This happened when he got to Houston, because before that, Houston had been trying to get different free agents. Like, I think they got like a courtesy meeting with Chris Bosh during the Heat, the decision summer. Like, they've been in the mix for other guys. They get Harden. Suddenly it's like, okay, we have one guy, and now other guys like Dwight Howard, because I think the Rockets were one of the teams when Dwight was trying to get traded from Orlando. They were one of the teams that was going to put together an offer, and this was before the Harden trade even happened. And they were going to try to use some of those same pieces that they traded for Harden to try to get Dwight. And Dwight made it clear to them, I don't want to be in Houston. I don't want to, that's not where I want to go. I want to go to the Lakers, or I want to go to Brooklyn, or I want to go to, one of these, flashier teams. They get Harden. And then that next summer, Dwight's a free agent. And suddenly Dwight's like, I want to go there. I want to play with Harden. I like what you guys are building. And like that's what happens. Like, if you look at what the problem has been with the Knicks is, they're the biggest market. They have this iconic arena. They have all this stuff. They have this great fan base. They have all these celebrity fans. It seems like it should be a really attractive situation, but Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were rumored to be going there for months. They didn't really even take them seriously. They tried to get LeBron in 2010. He didn't even really take them seriously because they're a joke of an organization. They don't have other guys. Melo is like the only guy during this whole era of like player movement that's been like a star at that level that's wanted to go there. And I guess Amari Stoudemire too, if he counts, like from what he was at the time that he signed there. But like most guys, like they, all these other guys that have been free agents, like Kawhi didn't really give them a look. LaMarcus Aldridge was going to meet with them and then decided not to. Like, if they get Harden, suddenly they can be like, we have a top 5 player in the league. Now you have to give us a look. And whether it's Giannis next year or whoever after that, like, I don't know who the next free agent is. It's whether it's like Karl Anthony Towns or Embiid or whoever. Like, if Harden is already on board, it's a lot easier of a sell to these guys. You can say, hey, we have a big market. We have this, you can play at MSG, and we have an MVP candidate who's still in his prime.
Yeah, I think if you're the Knicks and you're looking for a home run move that's actually possible, unlike, any of the other people that they believe that they can get, especially in a draft that is just not very good, like, get James Harden, have Frank Ntilikina guard all the point guards, and you have that as your backcourt and Taj Gibson, and you just figure it out from there. And you probably will be pretty good.
And you have to, if you're going to get a superstar, as I just said, we have seen that superstars, when they're free agents, aren't really looking at the Knicks like that. You get one in a trade, so it's not him choosing to go there. He's got 2 or 3 years left on his contract, so it's not like he can really do anything about it if he doesn't want to go there. You get him in. That's how you get him, when you can trade for him. And then, maybe you can build a good team around him and get him to say, okay, I'm into this. I'm going to try to recruit other guys now. That's how you do it if you're the Knicks.
Yeah, that's the only way they can do it. I mean, they don't have the cap space because they used it all up last summer because they thought they were going to get KD and they weren't going to get him. And
all those guys they have are like team options or non-guaranteed guys. So if they need to get cap space this summer, they can, and they're going to have cap space in 2021 because all those, even if they pick up all those team options like Julius Randle, Bobby Portis, Taj Gibson, kind of all those guys, like, those guys will all be off the books. I looked at their salary sheet. I think they have like 10. I think they have like just RJ Barrett and Mitchell Robinson on the books for the 2021 offseason. So even if you get Harden and you just sign a bunch of guys to 1-year deals, you'll still have cap space in 2021 to get, whether it's Giannis or Kawhi or whoever, like whichever of these guys is up, you could get one of those guys, or you can fit one of those guys in alongside Harden.
Yeah, you can at least get in the conversation where the Knicks haven't even been in the conversation for the last 5 years. So yeah. That's where it's important, and it would be great. Yeah, I'm very pro this idea. So I like it. I like it, Sean. Yeah.
So do we want to talk about the East Finals, or do we want to save that for the Patreon?
We can save it for the Patreon, I guess. I mean,
yeah. We're going to do a Patreon episode.
We're almost at an hour here, so it's like, let's save it for the Patreon. We'll have some more stuff to talk about, and we can, we can do a quick vibe check. I think both of their vibes are great right now. There's really not anything else to say. And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of that matchup on the Patreon pod later tonight.
Yeah. What do you think about Lonzo signing with Klutch?
I think it makes sense. I mean, he wants to be independent, and him and LeBron are good. Like they left on good terms. Like even after Lonzo got traded, like he was on the like right before Lonzo got traded, he was on the shop, and it's they are good. They're cool. So obviously, and he obviously really respects what LeBron does. He was on a podcast talking about how impressed he was by LeBron's work ethic. So he obviously knows that what LeBron's doing is working, and he wants to align himself with that. And also, third eye open, maybe also wants to go back to the Lakers. Just going to throw that out there because the Pelican situation is interesting, and Zion is going to get better. But I mean, it would be cool for him to go, him just throwing lobs to AD and LeBron. I'm sure he would love to do that, but obviously he's a restricted free agent. They can match anything, but there's a way that
he's not restricted. He's got one more year left on his.
Well, he's restricted.
Ingram is restricted.
Yeah, and Lonzo's extension eligible this summer, but there's no way he's getting an extension after the way he finished the season. I mean, maybe he is, but I don't see the Pelicans doing that, especially when they've got to pay Ingram, and they're going to have to pay Zion a couple years down the line. Yeah,
my first thought when I saw that he signed with Klutch was that he should have done this a year ago, because then maybe he wouldn't have been in the Anthony Davis trade. Maybe they would have like sacrificed Kuzma at the altar instead.
Yeah, I think that's a very realistic possibility that he went with the wrong agency, and I guess that Kuzma just had it
because he went to Big Baller Brand. Or he left Big Baller Brand and then he went to CAA, right?
Yeah, he was at Big Baller Brand. He was at CAA, and then he was with all three of the brothers again with Rock Nation, and then he just broke off from that. I think Jello and Mello are still Rock Nation, but he wanted his own thing. And props to him. I'm proud of him for kind of growing into his own career, and also, I mean, it's never a bad thing to sign with Klutch Sports. It's never. I don't think it's ever gone wrong for anybody. So
Greg Monroe is the only guy.
Yeah. Okay. And I think the league probably passed him by anyway. I don't know. I don't know.
Wait, no. That wasn't Greg Monroe. That was KCP. I mean, I know he's like done okay on the back end, but when they turned down like a $70 million deal from the Pistons.
Oh yeah.
No, it was David Falk that messed up Greg Monroe. It wasn't Klutch, but same team though, Detroit. But like KCP, like he turned down a $70 million extension and then had to sign the qualifying offer.
That's right. Yeah. And then he ended up getting the bag from the Lakers on the back end. But yeah.
Wait, was Nerlens Noel Klutch when he turned down the $70 million from Dallas, or did he go to Klutch after that? I think he was with Klutch at the time.
Maybe he was. Yeah.
So they don't have a perfect track record.
And nobody does, but it's like, it's still good. You know what I mean?
But like he got, they got Anthony Davis to the Lakers. He got Eric Bledsoe paid twice, first in Phoenix and then in Milwaukee. Like, he's going to get Trae Young traded wherever he wants in 2 years. Just keep your third eye open on that one. Mm-hmm. He got KCP the money laundering contract 2 years in a row for getting LeBron to the Lakers.
Yeah. Was Anthony Edwards is maybe the number one pick in this draft, and he's Klutch. So
they just signed a bunch of NFL guys, like a bunch of guys from this year's NFL draft were Klutch.
Yeah, they had a bunch.
He's got a couple of baseball guys now too.
Yeah, they got Tim Anderson from the White Sox on their roster now for baseball.
Tim Anderson rules, by the way. I don't know how much you follow baseball, but he's like one of the coolest guys in baseball.
Yeah, no, he's dope. I know a little bit about Tim Anderson. I kind of, I used to be a White Sox fan kind of when Ozzie Guillen was the manager.
If I'm ever allowed to move back to Chicago, I'm going to become a White Sox fan. Wilms and Ricky have me convinced.
Being a Cubs fan is lame.
Yeah. I mean, when I lived there, I used to live near Wrigley, and it just got, that area was so gentrified, and it was just like the worst people hang out. And like, I used to go to games at Wrigley sometimes because my apartment was like a 15-minute walk from the stadium, and my buddy who worked at the radio station that broadcast them, you would sometimes get the station's tickets, and so we would go. But like, it's not like,
it's a great ballpark. It's a beautiful ballpark.
Well, even then, it's not the same now, because when I first moved there in 2013. My dad came out there to help me move, and he and I went to a game at Wrigley. And this was back when the Cubs were still terrible, and so we could get tickets for like $5 or whatever. And this was before they put in the video scoreboard. And so the stadium looked exactly like it looked in 1908. It was exactly like all of this stuff. It had not changed at all. And then like a year later, they did all the renovations and put in the video board. And it's not the same
now. No. I mean, I'll take your word for it. But yeah, I remember I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Ozzie Guillen and the White Sox for that matter. Even when I was a little kid, I loved Frank Thomas. Like when I was a baby, basically. Like my parents always made fun of me for being a big Frank Thomas guy. And Frank Thomas now, who is the star of the horniest commercials on TV.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, the current White Sox team is pretty cool now, actually. Like, Tim Anderson's cool. Jose Abreu is cool. Yohan Moncada is cool. Like they just have a lot of cool, young, like mostly Latin, like up and coming players.
Yeah. Very cool. I very much support that. I think baseball talk is a good place to stop there.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I gotta be honest, I have not like actually watched any baseball this year. I bought the reduced price MLB TV package, but then like the season started the exact time as the NBA, so I just haven't watched it at all.
Mm-hmm. No, I've barely watched it too. Like I'm keeping an eye on the Mariners. They went on a little win streak the other day or last week, and they're like kind of somewhat in the mix for the wild card because they expanded the playoffs. So I mean, I'm still a Mariners. I still want the Mariners to do well, but obviously, like, they're probably not going to make it. There's just 18 years of losing really lowers your expectations. For teams. So but
maybe I'll tune in during the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, I always tune in for a couple games during the postseason for sure. It's just a different intensity. It's always. I'm definitely a baseball casual. But Eastern Conference Finals, we'll talk about on the Patreon. Game 1 tomorrow, Game 7 tomorrow of Nuggets Clippers. Gonna be a great day of hoops on Tuesday.
Yeah, it is. So we'll be back tomorrow with that. We're recording it today, but it's going to go up tomorrow morning before the games start. So it won't be dated right away. So other than that, as always, you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever else. Subscribe, rate, review. Subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/BullsVBlazers if you want to get our extra episodes where we're reading the Skip Bayless book and kind of talking about other NBA stuff maybe we don't get to on the free episodes. You should go check that out. It's only $3 a month, which is not very much. We're starting to pick up more subscribers, so just go get in on that. Get in on the ground floor. Remember, we're at like 16 subscribers now. When we get to 100, we're going to do the Drip Bayless photo shoot.
Yes. We're coming with it, even though he's newly problematic again. But
we're going to talk about that on the Patreon.
We are. It's going to be Skip Bayless chat time on the
Patreon.
Excuse me.
Yeah, and then you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at BullsVBlazers. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Highkin. Read my stuff on Bleacher Report. Erik, tell everyone where they can check you out.
You can find me at LeBronWire.usatoday.com, where we are covering LeBron James and the Lakers and also anything Klutch sports. I wrote about the Lonzo Ball signing today. Also, Lakers fans think they're going to get Giannis too. So I wrote a little bit about Giannis unfollowing all of his teammates. But anyway, check out LeBronWire.usatoday.com and keep listening to this podcast. That's mostly where I'm writing right now. So, yeah.
Cool. So we'll be back later with a Patreon episode. Thanks for listening.